Hey, what's up, guys? Clayton Gits here. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast. So today I am honored, I think is the right word, to have Rosalie Warner with us, who I met, gosh, Rosalie, I think it was just a few short months ago that we met for the first time, and we were just having a conversation, and we're going to talk about that conversation. It's really what prompted me to kind of you know. I was going to say beg you, but I didn't have to beg you to come on. You just graciously agreed to come on our podcast. But I was so intrigued in the conversation. We're gonna unpack that today because I think you have a unique perspective that a lot of people are going to want to hear. So let me give you a proper introduction here. So Rosalie Warner is a 38-year veteran of the real estate industry, known for her extensive leadership and executive experience. She actually began her career in the mid 1980s as a real estate agent and then quickly rising through the ranks to hold significant leadership roles within some of the industry's most respected organizations. So, over the years, Rosalie has served as a managing broker, a business consultant, and executive, including her tenure as the president of Prudential Real Estate and senior vice president of a franchise network of more than 55,000 agents, overseeing operations and services that supported agents both domestic and globally. In December of 2024, Rosalie embraced a new chapter by joining Real Broker, bringing her decades of experience and passion for agent success to one of the industry's most innovative platforms. Rosalie, welcome.
Thank you. So nice to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and just reading this again, I'm like, oh my goodness, such an awesome, um, history of experience there. I want to unpack that a little bit, Rosalie, because you know, I always I tell my girls this all the time. I'm like, because we'll go into I don't know, let's call it a subway, right? And inevitably, especially when we're traveling, we have our local little favorite spots, but when we're traveling, inevitably the service is not up to par, like up to our standards. And so we walk out and I'm like, girls, you could go in there and you could either be managing that franchise within 3 months or you could become an owner very, very quickly. And so I look at your resume and I'm like, Rosalie understood this concept of, because clearly you rose through the ranks, very quickly. So I'd love to, first of all, kind of take us back to the beginning and why real estate 38 years ago. um, and
Ouch.
and then I'm 20 years in, and then talk about the progression. I mean, was that something that you were aspiring? I mean, were you aiming to do that, or did it just happen because you were a performer? Can you unpack that for us?
Sure, it's kind of funny. It's a funny story initially that my uncle had been in real estate as a developer. And so I had always been kind of intrigued with it and worked with him on some of that. And when my husband and I got married, as a gift, my wedding gift, he gave me real estate classes because he knew that was something I always wanted to do, right? Weird gift. I gave him mountain climbing classes. He gave me real estate
I
classes.
love that.
Both of those trajectories changed our lives. It's so interesting to look back on that now. He became a climber, climbed still wants to climb some more, but has climbed for 38 years, and I've been in real estate the same amount of time. So started as an agent with an independent here in Portland, Oregon, and just realized, in all honesty, that where my heart was at through those years of being a real estate agent was really in leadership roles because I found that I really loved helping develop other agents to do what I was doing. And so the progression just began. It began as an assistant manager, a branch manager, a multi-manager. And then I had an opportunity to we franchised during that period of time. And I had an opportunity to go to work for the franchise. So that just opened up a whole new world of opportunity and really being able to see, that 35,000-foot view of the industry. So I had done work for the Oregon Association, National Association of Realtors, and, was on chapters and chairs and all of those things that you do. And so I had really this domestic view of the industry and I loved it. That's where my passion stayed. And so for many years, 24 years of that 38, that's where I sat, as I sat in the franchise world.
And so, first of all, what a great gift that you gave your
Right?
husband and he gave you. Yeah, that's incredible. Um, so back up for just a sec, if you will. So a- again, were you kind of hand selected, or was this something that you just you raised your hand and said, "Hey, I want these opportunities." Like how did those opportunities come your way?
I raised my hand.
Okay.
I think that we always wait for people to come to us and hand us something.
Yeah.
But if you see something you want, you need to find your way to get it.
Yeah.
And so by letting people around you know, hey, I have an interest in this. I have a passion in this. This is where I want to go with my life. And then in the franchise, I had a friend call me and say, "Hey, there's a position." It was a Prudential real estate franchisor. Um, we have a position that fits you so well. Would you consider it? And that was like a whole new scale for me. I hadn't really thought of. And then as I pursued that and left the local brokerage to become the national franchisor and part of that organization, it really opened my eyes to the industry as a whole. I think that's where my biggest learning began. And then, I mean, there was a couple of times when I saw an opportunity within the franchise, and I had a role, I had a position, and I said, "Hey, we have an opening over there, but I can do that one too." And so I would handle like two or three other positions and roll them all into mine and do them all, which for the company was great, save salaries. But for me, it was again not sitting back saying, wow, if I wasn't doing this, I could do that, but look for a way to make all of that come together. And I think, you just have to get creative at times. If there's something you want, what is the road to get there? And, I did it through professionally showing my capabilities as well as asking
Yeah.
for the order, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a great lesson that a lot of people just get potentially passed up for opportunities because they don't raise their hand. Like,
Yeah,
hey, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember my boss saying to me one time, when I had said I want to go do this other position, he said, "You better learn to multitask, and you better learn to delegate," because he could see what I was bringing on.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's great opportunities. Don't let them go by.
Well, that's actually really good advice as well. Did you learn to you clearly learned to delegate and to,
Yeah,
bring in support as well because you can't do it all.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So talk about your position with Prudential. So you were what specifically, what were you doing with Prudential for all
So I
those
was
years?
essentially running the service department, started out, of course, as a business consultant, ran the service department, which delivered, training and consulting and all of those pieces and worked in conjunction with, marketing and technology and operations.
Okay.
And then we had an opportunity, Prudential sold because the mother Prudential just really didn't want a real estate arm anymore. So as we were going through that process and we took a look at what we were doing, I actually became president of that brand. And because I had intimate relationships with most of the broker owners, it was just a natural fit for me to help with not only that brand, but the transition of that brand into another world, right? So that was a job that nobody could have written a description for, right? It was really just, wow, this is, we had, oh boy, I'm just going to guess here. We had 25,000 agents, maybe 30,000, Canada, North America, and we were in Mexico, but really not a big global company, just North America. So it was a great lesson in learning, but it was on the job training. So
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
kind of had to figure it out as we went along. We did a great job. We converted all but one company over to a new network, and it was the kind of experience you can't duplicate, but you
Yeah.
learn so much from.
Yeah. 25,000 agents transitioned,
Yeah, about 25,
roughly?
30. Yeah, right in there. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. Wow, okay. And so, you move over to this new brand. So you were acquired, Prudential was acquired. Yeah. And you became president of this new brand?
I continued my presidency of Prudential Real Estate, and then I took on some. When I talked about I did more than one thing, right? So I took on some jobs in both the sales and service department as we worked on this transition piece. And really, my job at that point was to continue to run the Prudential franchise, as
Mhm,
well as roll up my sleeves and help these people decide if that's something they wanted to do. Did they want to make the move?
mhm,
And so really, I had about 3 jobs at that time. Lots of moving pieces and balls in
mhm.
the air, but it was great. It was great. When I look back, I think wouldn't want to do it again, but gosh, was it? It was great.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work, for sure. So, what happened at this new brand? So what became, or what was your position and what became your position at the new brand?
I became this senior vice president, and we became global, right? So we were in, I don't know, I can't remember now, 7 countries, 8 countries, but we were in Europe, we were in Dubai, we were in Canada and Mexico. And so really it was continued to be a learning experience, which is what's so great because other than North America, I hadn't really worked globally. And so we had a great time bringing on global companies. When I left, we were at about 53,000 agents, and it's still a fabulous, wonderful organization,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
great.
yeah. Wow. So that was that their largest acquisition? Was Prudential was their largest acquisition?
It was a brand new startup brand. So, yep, that was their largest
Yeah.
acquisition.
Okay. Okay. When did you leave this other brand?
June of last year.
June of last year. Okay. Um, so let's unpack that.
Okay.
So, coming from the franchise, the kind of the traditional franchise world, so I spent 12 years at Keller Williams and loved my tenure there. Um, I drank the Kool-Aid, in a big way, and really thought I was going to spend the rest of my career there until I was introduced to this new virtual space. And so, kind of growing up for you, from beginning until last year in this franchise model, what was it that, what was the catalyst that said, you know what, I need to take a closer look at this?
Really, I have to give that credit to my daughters. So, you have daughters, Clayton.
Yeah,
I have
two
2
daughters. Yeah.
daughters who grew up saying, "We will never be in real estate, ever."
Mm,
Because we see how hard you work, right? So all the time they were growing up and all the trips they enjoyed and all the things they enjoyed about me being in real estate, they said, no, never. And then now they're both in real estate. And so one is in the suburbs of Chicago and one is right here in Portland, Oregon with me. And they both kind of said to me, we never looked at other brands because you were an executive role at one. We are going to go work somewhere else. We're going to follow your footsteps and be with the brand you're leading. So they never really stepped out of that comfort zone, right? So when when I was, really independent of what I was going to do with my life, they said we want to look around. We want to see what's out there. So my daughter from Portland, Stephanie Peters, Steph said, "Hey, there's this model I keep looking at, and would you look at it with me?" And that was
mhm, mhm,
so.
mhm.
And she had looked at other traditional models. I mean, they're all out there. We all know who they are.
Yep.
And she looked at EXP, but Real really caught her eye, and she said, "Will you, peel back the onion with me and take a look at it?" So we did.
Why did it initially, excuse me, I'm sorry for cutting you
No,
short. Why did it initially catch her eye?
I think it's because she runs a small team of which I'm part of,
Mhm,
and she is very independent entrepreneur.
mhm,
She doesn't go in the office. She didn't go in the office because she has one in her backyard. She has an office back there. And so for her, it was really, you know, where can I go where I have a little more freedom on what I do? And I have people at the same caliber that I want to work that are going to collaborate and support me in growing my business. Not that she wasn't getting that where she was at. She was getting coaching and all the things she wanted, but she's a very entrepreneurial person. So we looked at it. I knew Sharon and knew of Sharon because my headquarters was in California. So I just, knew kind of he was. And so it gave me an opportunity to really talk to him, look at him, talk to Tamir and some other leadership to really say, what is this model? What are we looking at here? And, you know, it began to intrigue me because of conversations I have had for years with other traditional franchises and brokerages that have said this traditional model is becoming more and more difficult to manage, to grow, and to lead.
Mm.
And so having that in the back of my mind, looking at the real model, it's like, this is the model of the future. This is where we need to be. And it was a lot of things. It was culture, it was the model itself, it was the financial structure, it was the financial support, it was the technology support. So it was all the pieces you would look at. I will tell you that the biggest piece though was the collaborative culture
Mhm.
and the ability of I'm not competing with you, even if I'm next to you. I'm not competing with you. I'm here to help you grow your business right along with me, and we're going to celebrate that together.
Yeah, abundance mindset.
I love that. I just
Yes, me
love
too.
it. And so um, we came over to Real, and then my daughter in Illinois followed us at the beginning of this year. So it's a family affair to a certain extent, but it's so much fun. I don't know how else to say that is it's just fun to watch agents do what they're so good at. And I was very in tune with the lawsuit when it was going on. Was very much a part of that for our company. And it was very hard for me to sit and hear that, a lot of people don't really understand how hard real estate agents work. I always knew that when you're sitting in a court of law, hearing it, it's a little bit tougher. Um, Nobody works harder than the agents that I know at all scales of agents. And the what they do at a consumer level and what they contribute to people's lives is overwhelming. But that was never discussed. And so this has really been kind of a roll up my sleeve, great start to be in a virtual environment to see that it really isn't that much different from how I do business,
Yeah.
but it's such a joy every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So culture was the number one thing for me as well. I was actually having a conversation with my coach this morning, Rosalie, and he coaches he coaches agents that are, with a bunch of different brands, right? So he gets perspective
Sure,
from
sure.
EXP, LPT, Epic, Real, and so he has this unique kind of insider view. And he said to me that it's so important to align with a culture that aligns with you.
Yeah.
And so for me, Real just felt more aligned with who I am and how I choose to live. And it's you said something that I think was very telling. um it is truly, and look, and I say this all the time, like Real, like any brokerage, Real is not perfect, right?
Right.
But we have this concept of called One Real, collaboration over competition, and it's top down. It's not something that we created. I mean, this is from it's a part of our ICA, our independent contractor agreement. It is, we are in this together, and we're going to help each other grow regardless of whose network you're in, or if you're connected, not connected. We're all connected through this One Real culture, this idea, um that it's why I'm here as well. So when we were chatting, we met for the first time, you had shared that you were in a bunch of these C-suite meetings, right? And in that the conversations you were having behind the scenes were, hey, our model is um, it, it's breaking, and how do we fix it? And these were conversations that were coming up, if I recall our conversation correctly. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So they just kept coming up. And when did these conversations start? Like what year?
They probably started a few years ago, and they were organizational. So they were not only with the company I was with, but they were at gatherings when we would talk about, industry gatherings.
Hmm.
They would happen when I sat in a broker's office. So it's probably been more so. I'm thinking maybe from COVID on, right? When
Mm-hmm.
people were forced to go out and work from their homes in most cases,
Hmm.
and they started to understand they didn't need the brick and mortar,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of the catalyst to the conversations. But there were within the traditional models for every company, because they're not all that different. There's pieces that don't work anymore. Let me give you an example.
Yeah, please.
If I was an agent in um, Ohio and I spent 4 months of the year in Florida, I would, and I enough time to where I did business in both states.
Yeah.
I would need to be with a brokerage in Ohio, and I would need to be with a brokerage in Florida. So I have two desk fees or two programs, right? Hopefully are with the same brand. That's what we always hope for, right? Um, but I had two scales of commissions and so forth, depending on who I was with. At Real, if I have a real estate license, I have one contract, and I can do business out of my house in Florida. I can do business out of my house in Ohio. Wherever I'm licensed, I can do business under one contract. Those are the kinds of devices that are not available in the traditional model, but agents really want it.
Yeah.
Also the traditional model has silos and barriers. This is my territory over here. This is my territory over here. And you, broker owner, who want to move into that territory, can't because somebody else
Great
has,
point.
right?
Yeah.
And but wait a minute, I've got, I cross state lines. My agents cross their dual license to their, no, sorry, you can't have an office there. You can't do business there because that's so and so's territory. That
Great point.
happens a lot in
Yeah.
traditional models. But here, you don't have those silos and barriers geographically. You can do business wherever you can legally do business
That's right. Yeah. And
under
I'll,
the
and I'll,
broker in that state, right?
yeah.
So it's really a more, I want to call it a global model, but it's really more of an open model that really says do business where you do business,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do it
And when you
under
want to do
one,
business.
yeah, do it under one contract, do it under one set of splits and caps and so forth. And you don't have to bounce that around. Plus it's not financially feasible to have one contract down here and one
Yeah.
contract there. It's expensive. So
Yeah. Yeah. To me, they've kind of perfected the expansion model that Gary Keller introduced, many years
right,
ago. But
right.
to your point, it just becomes financially oppressive when you're paying multiple franchise fees and desk fees and all the things, to your point. And just to be very clear, at Real, it's one national cap, one set of fees, regardless of how many states you're doing business in. So it's very unique in that's from that standpoint.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So so for you, um, you obviously you felt like the model was breaking or it was broken as well. And then so you saw this, you made the transition. You've been here for has it been a year?
No, 6 months.
It's only been 6 months. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what would you say is two things? So any challenges, because you lived in that space for so long, that traditional model. Any challenges? Someone just asked me this question, by the way, and I was like, uh, I had to come up with something. So,
Yeah,
but any challenges
sure.
that you've seen over the past 6 months coming from the traditional space to this new virtual space?
I think if I had been an agent that moved over, I would have had a little bit less challenges. But as an executive, when my daughter laughs at me all the time, I always say, I had people who did that for me, right? And so now, thank goodness, I have two daughters that jump in and help once in a while. But it's kind of like I don't know how to do that. I've got to figure it out. Usually, it's technology driven,
Hmm, hmm.
and so that's really the only thing. In all honesty, there hasn't been a lot of challenges. The challenges have been, um, how can I be a sponge and just grab as much as I can, as fast as I can, to really understand and live within this new model. I agree with something you said. Real isn't for everybody. It's not. This model is not for everybody.
Yeah.
But it is for, I mean, we're at what, like 27,000 agents ish. It's for a lot of people. And a lot of people still don't know it exists, I think,
Right.
right? And they still don't understand it is an easy transition. It's not hard because there is a lot of help getting you onboarded. And I'll tell you what, one thing I'm so impressed with is the systems because they work. When you can open up your computer and there's your dashboard and it tells you exactly where you are at
Yeah.
that minute
Yeah.
in your cap, in your sales, in your wherever, whatever you want to know, it's right there.
Down to
That's
the penny.
amazing. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Onboarding. It is so systemized. It was amazing.
Yeah.
There was no pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think for me, it's just I probably got a little bit lazy having great support around me at
Yeah.
all times.
Hmm. I
That
get that.
some of the minutia work,
Yeah.
I just didn't have time to do, and they took it on. So I've had a little bit of a learning curve to get kind of back into that. But otherwise, no, it's just been fabulous.
And by the way, I agree. I agree. Let me I'm gonna share a quick story with you and just get your take on it. See if you can relate to it, and then we can move on. I know we wanted to talk about like broker owners and the pain that they're kind of feeling right now. So we'll get into that here in just a sec. But I was with a traditional franchise model for 12 years. I became a franchise owner. And one of the things that I recognized, I didn't really understand the gravity of it at the time. I do very clearly now, but I got a call from the um, um, market center administrator, and she had shared with me that they had, and I'm an owner. Okay, she had shared with me that they had purchased some desks for $20,000. And I remember this, vividly. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, would have been nice to know, as an owner." Um, and I said, "Well, how many desks did you purchase?"
Wow.
Two. So same desk, one for the new, the new team leader, and then one for the market center administrator. So it was two $10,000 desks. Here's where I'm going with this. What I didn't understand there then that I clearly understand now is that we didn't have a lot of control. So the agents certainly didn't have any control. And this was a profit sharing model that I'm talking about. The agents didn't have a lot of control about what was being pulled out of the individual franchise. And it was kind of the up to the regional directors and the owners of the franchises to pull as much of the profit out of these individual franchises as they could.
Sure.
And then whatever was left over, whatever profit was left over, was distributed to the agents that recruited or attracted agents into that individual franchise, right?
Yep.
And again, I didn't really understand the gravity of it at that point. Now, and you're familiar with profit first banking, Rosalie. Yeah.
Yes.
So now, what essentially, in my opinion, what Real has done is they've taken the profit first model essentially and they've applied it to Real. They've flipped the traditional franchise model upside down, and they've said, wait, we're going to actually share 60% of the 15% of our cap, right? The company dollar. So 60% of the 15%. And that's going to go into a pool and be distributed to the agents that help the company grow, the agents that want to participate in that, right? But then what it does from an accountability standpoint is there's 40% left to run the company. And
Right.
you have to figure out how to efficiently, operationally run the company off of 40%. And there's some fees associated and stuff like that help, right? But you've got two completely different models that are just the opposite of each other. And to me, it's profit first. And if we all ran our businesses that way, where we as owners, we say, you know what? I'm going to take 60% of the profit from my business, and then I have to figure out how to run my business on 40%. Is essentially, and I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great model.
Yeah, yeah. But back to the traditional franchise model, we just had no control. If you're in a company as as an agent, or we just didn't have any control over how the money was being spent, if you will. Now
Right.
we're owners in
Right.
this
Exactly.
model. Yeah,
Yeah. And you feel that way too,
you do.
right? I
Yeah,
mean, you really do. Whether you're an individual agent, a team, or a company within this network, you feel like you have that ownership and that power.
mhm.
It's supported every day for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And
and
you and I are
it's
having conversations
transparent.
with leadership almost on a daily basis
Yeah.
from the president on down. Yeah, it's really neat. So I'd love to hear your take on, because I know, I mean, I'm a team leader. We've got about 40, I don't know, Becca, 40 agents and ops team. Yeah. Um, and so I get it. Like it's becoming more challenging to run real estate businesses. And especially when you start talking about scale and these larger brokerages and the value adds that you have to stay competitive. I know it's one of the things you shared with me is that your franchisors were yelling at you like, please help us, like we need lower caps, we need lower fee in order to compete with this new landscape. So talk about the conversations that you've had and that you're having with broker owners that are just really struggling out there about how this model might be a solution.
They're struggling for several reasons. They're struggling from the lawsuit, and that's still hanging over everyone's head, and they're still navigating that. They're struggling because of the eroding company dollar. Agents are more self-sufficient, so they're demanding more of the commission because they want to do their own marketing. They want to do their own, team. They want to control their dollars somewhat, kind of like what you were talking
Great
about.
point.
And, so they want a higher split. Companies are getting a lower company dollar. And then they're having to do what you said, only they're doing it the traditional way. I'm going to pay all the bills, and I'm hoping to gosh that there is some profit left at the end versus here's the profit, going to put
Yeah.
that aside. Now, how do I pay the bills with what's left? Right.
Yes.
So they're in that traditional model. Then they're recruiting agents who are saying, well, wait a minute. I Why am I paying you $40,000 a year? Because I kind of have my own technology. I do my own marketing. And I'll tell you, these traditional models have more tools, systems, and services that anyone in their lifetime could use. And they're beautiful and they've worked hard to develop them, and the agents don't use them. It was a constant fight, and it is in any brand, that we have all this stuff for you, stuff, but the agents don't use it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
Yeah.
Well, Real has stuff too. They have less stuff because it's a very entrepreneurial environment where people like to make their own stuff. They like to do their own marketing. They like to create their own reels, and they like to promote themselves as an agent or a team. And so, in the traditional models, you're spending a lot of money on things that you are delivering to keep these agents and retain them in your network, in your company, and they're not using them. It's a constant battle that every brand out there goes through.
Yeah.
So, what the broker owners are saying is, gosh, we need to be able to offer some kind of a cap, because under my model, they're paying a lot of money that they don't see the return on investment in.
That's right. That's
And
right.
so it's hard for me to have that conversation. The problem is traditional models are built on traditional models, and it's really hard. I mean, you see some companies like I'm going to say Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster was a very traditional model. They figured out how they could kind of transition that along the way, and then they went all virtual. The very last Blockbuster brick and mortar is here in Bend, Oregon. And
Really?
people go by and they stand in front of it and they take pictures in front of it,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
museum, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, no brand wants to become a museum.
Yeah.
They do not want to be, right? So, but they figured out how they could transition their business. It's very hard in a traditional real estate company to transition your business into something that is more virtual because of the infrastructure that is already built in. And it's just very difficult. And so really what brokers are in traditional environments are asking for, it's hard to attain it. Now, some companies are able to take their roster and jerry rig it a little bit so they can create caps for some of their top agents. That's another thing that's fabulous at Real. You're not getting any better split than I am, and I'm
Right.
not getting any better split than my daughter or, somebody in Texas or somebody in Florida, right? We're all on the same program. But traditional companies have to really try and manipulate that. Individual owners need to try and manipulate that somehow to continue to recruit, retain agents. Uh,
Boy, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
please.
it's
Yeah.
it's hard for other agents to see that. They know it.
Yeah.
They know it, but
Well, do they though? Because I have there are a number of I have some friends that are with some traditional models that have insane like deals. Like they basically pay nothing. In
right,
some cases, the company
right.
pays them. And
Exactly.
while you have, while you have agents that are at these same brands that are struggling, and to your point, it's a retention tool. They're doing what they have to do, and I understand that. Otherwise, that top producer is just gonna
Right.
leave and work for less somewhere else. So you think that there's an opportunity for specifically for broker owners to plug into this model and have a some form of an exit strategy, which is the older we get, I'm 50. I'm starting to think about it. Like I don't, and I'm starting to think about it more from the standpoint of how am I going to replace all this income? Like I really don't want my income to go down when my wife and I, God willing, are out there traveling around the world when the kiddos are, fly the so
Right.
talk about that potential exit strategy for these broker owners.
So here's the problem is nobody wants to buy a real estate company, right? They're not something that you want to go buy. Now, if you're in a market, somebody's ready to sell and you might want to roll them in because they're down the street from you. You guys have worked together for years, that can happen. But as
Hmm.
far as finding a purchaser for your company, the model's going to look like this. I'm going to buy your company, Clayton, and I'm excited to do that. There's no money up front, but I need you to stay on for about 3 years. And I need you to stay on and I need you to do the following: help retain the agents that are there, especially through the transition, help me recruit and grow the business. And then I'm going to give you an earnout and all of this gross commission income over those 3 years. So when the 3 years are done, we're done, right? And you
Yeah.
can retire and go on your way. To your point, your income is done at 3 years. So hopefully you've done a good job preparing for that, but you're not going to have any residual income coming in. You're done at that point. Now you may still sell real estate, do some of that, but essentially the business that you have sold is paid out and done. There are, of course, one-offs to that model, but that's pretty typical when you are selling a real estate company, not just today, but it's been that way for years.
Hmm.
And here's the problem. All of my assets are who? My people. They're my agents. So they go out there and pound the street every day and work so very hard. Those are my assets that I'm selling.
Yes.
And my assets could decide, look, I don't want to be with this brand. I don't want to be with that owner. I don't want to be, And I know you're only going to be here for a couple more years. So I'm out of here. and I'm going to go work down the
Because of
street.
the relationship. Yep.
Yeah, by the way, I still love you. It's not
Mhm.
personal.
Yeah.
Can't tell you how many times heard that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not personal, but I can go down the street and I can get this with a cap and a higher split,
Mhm.
and I'm good.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to sell a company today. You could come into the real model with your business. That's a whole big story, right? But in short, operationally, Real can run my business for me. I'm going to stay there in whatever capacity I want to. I'm going to continue to recruit and grow this business and be a mentor and have relationships with these agents because that's what I love. They're like my family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and I can start to scale back however I want that to look. And oh, by the way, that residual income that's coming in is from profit, not revenue. Or excuse me, did I say
Revenue, not profit.
revenue, not profit? Thank
Mhm.
you. Too many years in the traditional.
I got you.
Is revenue, not profit, right? So you can't tweak it. You can't make that go away. It's what it is. And I can have that for the rest of my life, for my retirement, on and on and on as it continues to build and grow over here. And guess what? I can then will that to my heirs or my spouse or whoever I want to.
Yeah.
So my selling my company isn't done in 3 years or 2 years or whatever that looked like. And then I have no income stream. It's a forever income stream.
Well, and it's also important to note here, Rosalie, is it's not the income is not just coming from the, that individual brokerage, right?
Right. Right.
It's coming from potentially all 50 states and soon to be 5 provinces of Canada, and in the not too distant future, global opportunities. So that's one
Yeah.
of the things that just clicked for me is, I in the span of, gosh, we've been here for just over 13 months, we've built this little brokerage of 1,325 agents located all over the country. I don't think we're in Canada yet. But that's that that's incredible. If you're just looking at, let's see, somebody brings over a 50-person, brokerage, you're not just able to, because if you sell that traditionally, you're just selling that asset.
Right.
Here, you get to plug in operationally, Real takes over. And then, of course, there are benefits, revenue benefits from that, but there's also revenue benefits from all 50 states.
Absolutely. And so you continue to grow that where if you're selling traditionally, you have a cutoff date, you have an end date, and you're very limited on what you can do to increase your income over that period of earnout, right? So you're absolutely right because what you have continues to it takes on a life of its own.
Yes.
Right, and it starts to grow and grow, and you may have a great friend who is in a state 3 states away, who wants to be part of your network. And so they're not going to join your team or you, but they're going to join your network as part of your offering, and they're going to be part of Real, and you're going to end up getting residual from them as well. And they add 5 people, and what happens is the organization around you continues to grow, no matter where you're at, whether you're stepping back or whether you're continuing to actively be the catalyst to that growth.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, it's a fabulous model. And I'll tell you, real estate agents are the worst. God love them. They are the worst at planning for the future because it's immediate, right? It's bird in hand. Got to get this sale, got to close it. They don't think about what their future looks like,
No, they don't.
plan well for it.
No, they don't.
Real has valuable tools that help them to plan for their future and prepare for it in many too many ways to even talk about on this
Yes.
podcast, right? But
Yeah.
because they look at the financial aspect of a real estate agent's life as well as their day-to-day activity of doing real estate.
So I think that's a great way to kind of begin to wrap here, Rosalie. Is you said something a few minutes ago I want to end around on, and that was that Real has less stuff than some of these traditional larger brokerages. And while I agree, um, what I would add to that is that the stuff that Real has, agents are actually using. And so,
Exactly.
so to have 100% adoption on your technology is unheard of. It's unheard of. And so we have 100% adoption of agents using reZen, um, which just doesn't happen in any, and hasn't happened, I don't think, in any other brokerage. And what you just said about caring about the agent's kind of financial picture, this what they're doing with this real wallet concept. I don't think a lot of agents understand. Well, a lot of agents don't even know we exist, which is such a beautiful thing. Number one. Number two, if they do know we exist, they don't understand us, because I have these conversations multiple times per week, and people are like heads explode when they actually understand it, right? And so this financial technology product, integrating a banking platform into a brokerage, never been done before, and taking it a step further and offering a line of credit based on the assets that you and I uniquely push through Real, never been done before. And then taking it a step further and integrating a profit first banking model into this fintech product, so that the agents, and we've talked about this earlier in this podcast, is that the agents having the ability to take a percentage of their profit or a percentage of their commission income, their earned income, and automatically have that carved off and moved into an interest-bearing business checking account, and then automatically have a percentage of their choosing carved off into owner income, and then automatically having a percentage carved off into taxes, and then automatically having a percentage carved off into operating expense account. All that happens without you even having to think about it. Most importantly is owner profit. And I've turned that into, in my world, my wife and I run 5 businesses all through profit first banking today. We're moving everything over to the Real wallet because of that concept.
Yes,
Because you said this, and it's so true. Agents are not planning for the future. So if you can take 20%, and some agents can't take anything right now because there's too much debt. What did Buffini say years ago? We like to spend money that we don't have on things that we don't need to impress people that we don't know.
exactly, exactly.
Guilty. I'm
So
guilty.
true. Yeah,
But to take 10% or 20%, as much as you can, of your owner profit automatically, and put it either into the market where it's earning 10%, right? Or as real estate agents, putting it into a high yielding interest bearing account. And then when you have enough money, you go buy real estate, and then you go buy more real estate because it's happening automatically, right? And
yes.
your business is surviving off of what is left. And we're building all of that into the platform. And I personally think once agents understand this whole financial picture that Real is building, whew, it's going to be really exciting.
Well, and it's the piece that they're not strong in, right? You bring around you things that help you be stronger, and most agents aren't strong in the financial end. So it's a big, powerful piece.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else you want to share before we wrap? And thank you again so much for spending a few minutes with us.
It's been wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to be at Real, where so many people just care about you. No matter who you are, they just care about you. My phone rings with the strangest conversations of people who are just calling to say hello.
I think I was probably one
Right?
of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the best. It's just the best. And I just I'm thankful and grateful that I have this opportunity. And thank you for having me here today. Appreciate that.
You're so welcome. If people want to connect with you to find out more about Real, how can they do that?
They can, if they're in Real, they can reach me through the database. Otherwise, they can call me 503-875-3870. I'd love
And
to talk.
we'll put your information in the description as well, Rosalie, so they can connect
Great.
with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Great. Thank you.
All right, take care. Rebecca? Okay. Hey, great job. Yeah, we're good. Great
Thanks.
job.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. You have such a calm, cool demeanor about you. Doesn't she, Rebecca? It's like, and I think it maybe it's just who you are, but also the experience that you have and in the industry. And it just, like I said, is an honor to spend some time with you. And so just
Clay,
thank
I
you.
feel like I just want to shout from the rooftops. What are you guys doing down there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, best kept secret, but the
Yeah.
secret's getting out more and more and more. The other thing I didn't say, but I'll say to you just real quick is it's really nice to be, with an organization that doesn't have any baggage. Right. There's just no baggage. There's
Yeah.
no baggage with the owners or the president, or there's just not a lot of baggage. And you constantly are reading about, the baggage around EXP
Yeah.
and, a bunch of the other brands. And it's just so
It
nice.
is. It is. I
It-
agree. I agree. And I just want to encourage you again, like go shout it. Like go get on your so you have such a unique perspective of people. There are a lot of people out there like you that just don't know and that might very well feel trapped. So I just want to encourage you to go out there and share your your message with as many people as you can if you want to.
No, and I love
Yeah, yeah. Thank
I
you,
know.
Rosalie.
All right. Have a
Have a
great
blessed day. Okay, you too. Bye.
bye.